everybody, and welcome back to Music Impossible. Professor Jim here. Let's continue with Lesson 4 as we talk about the organization of meter. We're going to start with some definitions, and I know definitions are not the most exciting thing in the world to think about or do. The importance of this is really going to be about understanding these concepts because they might show up, well, they'll certainly show up in our quizzes and tests and perhaps on the AP Music Theory test. If not the exact definition, but how do you apply these terms in a broader scale or in a different sense? So let's talk about a couple of definitions here, starting with duration, which could include rests or notes, how long we play something. And whether it's a half note or a half rest, that's what we call duration. The beat, that's the boring part of how music is put together. It's very static, it's very consistent, particularly with simple meters. The beat is just that regular repeating pulse that we hear over and over again. It's the metronome of the piece of music. And then, of course, we have to organize all of those beats and those durations of silence and notes in a way that makes sense. Now, beats are generally in groups of 2, 3, or 4. We have 2/4 time, 3/4 time, 4/4 time. We have 6/8 time, which is organized in two groups of 3. 6/8 notes are usually in groups of 3. And so these groups can be subdivided into simple or complex ways. We call it simple or compound meter, which will be in the next lesson. We'll talk a little bit about subdivision. We're going to show you that more than talk about it. But how do we divide beats into equal parts? And then rhythm. So if beats is that steady, driving, metronome, boring thing, rhythm is how we organize around that beat to make things interesting to listen to. So when we create rhythms, we want those to be interesting. Sometimes we use pretty standard, regular rhythms. There can be syncopated rhythms. There can be irregular rhythms. There's all sorts of ways to be creative with that. So think of the beat as being the boring part of the organization of music, while rhythm is that creative space. And of course, the speed of the music is going to be our tempo. All right, we're going to look at Sibelius for a second, and Sibelius is going to just demonstrate some of these things on the music staff. What does it look like on the music staff? All right, here we are. If we look here, we have a bass clef staff and a percussion staff here at the bottom. But let's first talk about the idea of duration. We can already see that we've auto-filled these bars, these measures with whole rests. That is a duration, and of course we could go in and fill that in with a whole note, F there, bass clef F, and that's another duration of beat. Then we talk about our actual beats. We got some notes hidden here. Let's unhide these, and this is just a little woodblock sound, and we can tie that in with tempo right here. How fast does the music go? Well, in this case, it's 72 quarter notes per minute. 72 beats per minute. Such the quarter note gets the beat in 4/4 time. We have 72 quarter notes per minute. Sounds like this. Hear that regular pulse, that boring pulse, and how we organize music around that pulse, around that beat, makes us unique as composers and arrangers. Our meter here is 4/4 time. We're not going to get too much into meter. Next lesson, we're going to talk about those simple and compound and even asymmetrical meters. And so this, if we, a very basic level, 4/4 time, we can read that as 4 for the top number and 4 quarter notes being the bottom number, 4 quarter notes per measure. We can see that illustrated in the woodblock metronome down here. And so after 4 quarter notes of time, of beats, we have to then draw a bar line and start a new measure. When we talk about subdivision, if we were to subdivide, I don't know, let's make a bar here of 4 quarter notes. And if I wanted to subdivide this, let's go ahead and say goodbye to our boring woodblock metronome, but let's subdivide these quarter notes. And the best way to subdivide a quarter note, or the first way to subdivide, is with a series of eighth notes. So I might go like that. So I have 2 eighth notes per quarter note. I have now subdivided each one of these quarter notes into 2 woodblock eighth notes, and that would sound like this. And when we start to explore meter more, particularly in those asymmetrical meters, how we subdivide the beat to be able to play in time and to keep our counts and to count our measures and entrances and exits and things is going to be important to understand the subdivision of each of those meters. Now, if we go over to Pro Tools, I'm going to illustrate one last thing, and that's the idea of what we call duple, triple, and quadruple meters. And this is going to go hand in hand with our idea of simple and compound and asymmetrical meters in the next lesson. If you're not familiar with Pro Tools, you see this bar at the top. It's a little blue bar there, bluish green, and then we see 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. When we see a 2/4 bar and or any division of a 2/4 bar, could be 4/8, would be kind of a weird one, but 2/4, we're going to call this a duple, D-U-P-L-E. Over here we have our 3/4 right there. That was a terrible drawing there. We have our 3/4 right there. This is a triple meter, so anything that's divisible by 3 is a triple meter. And then over here our 4/4 is our quadruple meter. And inside of those meters, we have weak and strong beats. In 2/4, we considered beat 1 a strong beat and beat 2 a weak beat. You can kind of hear it illustrated here in the metronome. Take a listen. 1, 2, strong, weak, strong, weak. We go to 3/4, we considered beat 1 a strong beat again, and the other two, beats 2 and 3, are weak. Listen. Strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. 4/4 is a little bit different, still count 1 strong beat. Beat 2 and 4 are considered weak beats, and beat 3 is kind of like in between. It's a sort of strong beat, but it's not as strong as beat 1, and it's certainly stronger than beats 2 and 4. And we get this. We have strong, weak, sort of strong, weak. Strong, weak, sort of strong, weak. Next time, when we start adding this simple compound and asymmetrical idea, we're going to have to identify what the characteristics are of a duple, triple, and quadruple meter, and the characteristics of a simple and compound meter, and be able to put those together and identifying those meters. All right, next time we'll dive into that simple, compound, and asymmetrical meters. See you then.